Today we are ranking every Radiant Pokemon card. There are 15 different Radiant Pokemon cards, with the first 3 being introduced in the Astral Radiance expansion. Radiant Pokemon cards feature shiny Pokemon and have powerful attacks and abilities. All 15 Radiant Pokemon are basic Pokemon, and players can only have one Radiant Pokemon card in their deck. At number 15, we have Radiant Steelix. Released in Lost Origin, Radiant Steelix is one of the 3 Radiant Pokemon without an ability, but it has a massive 170 hit points. Radiant Steelix has 2 attacks, Energy Stream that does 20 damage and allows you to attach up to 2 energy cards from your discard pile to Radiant Steelix. The second attack, Destructive Finish, reads discard cards from the top of your deck until only 1 card remains. This attack does 30 more damage for each energy card you discarded in this way. This attack guarantees a knockout at the drawback of losing every other card in your deck but the very last one. You would need to discard 8 energy cards with this attack to knock out a V-Star Pokemon with 280 HP, such as Arceus, Palkia, and Giratina V-Star. If Destructive Finish is not your final attack, you are almost guaranteed to lose by deck out. At number 14, we have Radiant Chargebug. Released in Crown Zenith, Radiant Chargebug has the ability Shocking Block, which reads whenever any player attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon V, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Radiant Chargebug also has the attack Linear Attack, which does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for a single lightning energy. Radiant Chargebug's ability did not make enough of a difference with the damage it applies in any matchup to be worth playing over a more powerful option higher up on this list. Coming in at number 13, we have Radiant Eevee. Radiant Eevee is obtainable from the Pokemon Go Premium Collection box. Radiant Eevee has the attack Twinkle Gathering, which reads search your deck for a number of cards up to the number of different types of Pokemon you have in play and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. If you have 6 different types of Pokemon in play, you can search your deck for 6 cards. For a comparison, a card such as Computer Search, which requires you to discard 2 cards to search your deck for a single card, is considered overpowered. However, there is multiple problems with Radiant Eevee's attack. The first being, it's an attack. You have to give up damaging or knocking out your opponent's Pokemon to use Radiant Eevee. The second major problem is most decks play the same type of cards to take advantage of single archetype setups with specialized cards. It's very difficult to consistently power up multiple attackers from different types. Coming in at number 12, we have Radiant Halucha. Released in Astral Radiance, Radiant Halucha has the ability Big Match, which reads, as long as this Pokemon is on your bench, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon VMAX. With VMAX having the most HP in the Sword and Shield format, the 30 damage boost provided by Halucha seems extremely powerful, but at this point in the format, when Radiant Halucha was released, Palkia V-Star and Arceus V-Star decks were dominating the format, leaving an ability targeting VMAX Pokemon unnecessary. Coming in at number 11, we have Radiant Heatran. Heatran was in the first release of Radiant Pokemon and has one single attack, Raging Blast. That reads, this attack does 70 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. With 160 hit points, you can place up to 15 damage counters on Radiant Heatran, which allows you to do over 1,000 damage. Radiant Heatran is so low on this list because getting enough damage counters on Radiant Heatran before it gets knocked out is not easy. You can play Magma Basin, which allows you to place 2 damage counters on your Pokemon and attach a fire energy from your discard pile. Another way to play Radiant Heatran is to use the combination of Eldegoss to search for 2 grass energy, the supporter card, Gardenia, to accelerate 2 energy cards. With Old Cemetery, the Stadium in play, it would place 2 damage counters for each energy attached in this way. After attaching a fire energy with Old Cemetery still in play, you would have 6 damage counters on Heatran, doing 420 damage, which is enough to knock out anything in the Sword and Shield format. Going into the top 10, we have Radiant Blastoise. Radiant Blastoise was released in the Pokemon Go set and has the ability Pump Shot, which reads you must discard a water energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. And Radiant Blastoise also has the attack Torrential Cannon that does 170 damage and reads, during your next turn, this Pokemon cannot use Torrential Cannon. The effect of Radiant Blastoise already existed in the game with less downside. The Stage 2 Rapid Strike Inteleon has the ability Quick Shooting, which allows you to place 2 damage counters on any Pokemon, active or bench, and you do not have to discard an energy card to use it. Coming in at number 9, we have Radiant Eternitus. Radiant Eternitus released in the last set of the Sword and Shield era, Crown Zenith. Radiant Eternitus has the ability Climatic Gate, which reads, when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon VMAX and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. If you use this ability, your turn ends. This is an amazing effect that allows you to keep 2 prize V Pokemon off your bench. Radiant Eternitus had 2 problems though, the first being the effect end your turn. Ending your turn without attacking puts you at a disadvantage in the prize card race. The second problem with Radiant Eternitus is that it released in the last Sword and Shield set, Crown Zenith. By this point, VMAX Pokemon had almost been completely phased out of the game in favor of V-Star Pokemon, with Duraludon and Mew VMAX being the exception. Neither of these cards needed Radiant Eternitus to set up, which meant that Radiant Eternitus saw no play. For Radiant Eternitus to have been effective, it would have needed to be released in the very first Sword and Shield set to feature VMAX Pokemon. Coming in at number 8, we have Radiant Venusaur. Radiant Venusaur released in the Pokemon Go set with the other big 3 Kanto starters. Radiant Venusaur has the effect Sunny Bloom that reads, once at the end of your turn, after you attack, you may use this ability. Draw cards until you have 4 cards in your hand. Radiant Venusaur is a simple draw consistency card that can help many decks function. Rapid Strike Malamar has to send cards back to the deck with its Rapid Strike Tentacles attack. Hisuian Arcanine allows you to attack for free if you have no cards in your hand. And the mill deck Durant would rather play non-draw supporter cards such as Misfortune Sisters or Sydney to discard additional cards from your opponent's deck. Playing Radiant Venusaur in these type of decks allowed you to start your next turn with 4 cards in your hand instead of having nothing to work with. Coming in at number 7, we have Radiant Gardevoir. Radiant Gardevoir released in the Lost Origin expansion. Radiant Gardevoir has a great ability in Loving Veil that reads all of your Pokemon take 20 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V. Decks are specifically built to do the optimal amount of damage to one-hit KO the other best cards in the format. In the Sword and Shield format, hitting 220 damage for basic V Pokemon and 280 damage for V-Star Pokemon were the optimal numbers. Reducing damage by as little as 20 completely alters how you need to build your deck in order to take one-hit knockouts. Making your opponent take an extra turn to knock out one of your Pokemon can be the difference between winning and losing a match. Coming in at number 6, we have Radiant Hisuian Sneezler. Sneezler was released in the Lost Origin expansion and has the ability Poison Peak, which reads during Pokemon Checkup, put 2 more damage counters on your opponent's poisoned Pokemon. Radiant Sneezler was exclusively paired with Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing was a powerful single-prize Pokemon with the ability Neutralizing Gas that reads, as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's Pokemon in play have no abilities, except for Neutralizing Gas. Galarian Weezing's attack Severe Poison poisoned your opponent's Pokemon and increased the damage between turns from 10 to 40. With Radiant Sneezler, this damage was increased to 60 between each turn. Locking your opponent from their abilities and letting the poison damage accumulate was a simple yet effective strategy. Coming in at number 5, we have Radiant Jirachi. If I had to choose my favorite Radiant Pokemon, it would easily be Radiant Jirachi. With its ability Entrusted Wishes that reads, if this Pokemon is in the active spot and is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. Searching your deck for any card is the most powerful effect in the game. Getting 3 cards from Radiant Jirachi's effect is just broken. Radiant Jirachi also had a fun attack with Astral Misfortune, which reads, flip 2 coins. If both of them are heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. Astral Misfortune could be used with a single double turbo energy. The best use of Radiant Jirachi is to place it into your active spot and build up your setup on the bench, waiting for your opponent to knock out Radiant Jirachi to get the 3 cards you need to finish your setup. Coming in at number 4, we have Radiant Serena from Silver Tempest. This card comes in at number 4 strictly because it allowed Lugia V-Star decks to heal damage and compete with Lost Box decks during the Sword and Shield format. Radiant Serena's ability, Elegant Heal, reads once during your turn, you may heal 20 damage from each of your Pokemon. This ability allowed you to take your Pokemon out of knockout range of Sableye Lost Mine Attack and Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken. Coming in at number 3, we have Radiant Alakazam. Radiant Alakazam released in the Silver Tempest expansion and has the ability Painful Spoons that reads, once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of their Pokemon. Radiant Alakazam was paired with the Inteleon VMAX and its ability Double Gunner that reads, you must discard a Water Energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may choose 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon and put 2 damage counters on each of them. You could move these damage counters around with Painful Spoons, allowing you to take knockouts on low HP Pokemon, such as Comfey, with ease. Radiant Alakazam's effect was also paired with Arceus and Duraludon VMAX decks to help reach for knockouts on V and V-Star Pokemon after the initial attack that did not knock out your opponent's Pokemon. Coming in at number 2, we have Radiant Charizard. Radiant Charizard released in the Pokemon Go set and has the perfect attack for the meta it was released in. Combustion Blast dealt 250 damage, and when paired with a Choice Belt, you were able to take one-hit knockouts on the popular Palkia V-Star, Lugia V-Star, and Arceus V-Star. Radiant Charizard has the ability Excited Heart that reads, this Pokemon's attack costs 1 colorless energy less for each prize card your opponent has taken. So if your opponent has taken 4 or more prize cards, you are able to attack with a single fire energy. Getting this single fire energy was easy with many decks. Lost Box decks could use Mirage Gate to power up Radiant Charizard with an item card. The Stadium Magma Basin attached a fire energy card from your discard pile to a fire Pokemon on your bench. Lugia V-Star decks used Radiant Charizard to great success because you could accelerate a heat fire energy from your deck with Archeops and its ability Primal Turbo. Radiant Charizard has a massive 160 hit points. For a basic single prize Pokemon, this allowed Radiant Charizard to be one of the best single prize attackers of the entire format. Radiant Charizard was one of the very few comeback cards in the standard format during the Sword and Shield era that allowed you to come back from a prize deficit versus your opponent. Number 1 on this list is Radiant Greninja. Radiant Greninja was in the first batch of Radiant Pokemon cards released in Astral Radiance and is easily the most powerful Radiant Pokemon card. You can place Radiant Greninja into any deck for draw consistency with its ability Concealed Cards, which reads, you must discard an energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards. You are able to discard basic or special energy cards to use this effect. Having a powerful attack to go with this ability really sets Radiant Greninja apart from every other Radiant Pokemon card. Radiant Greninja's attack, Moonlight Shuriken, reads, discard 2 energy cards from this Pokemon. This attack does 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, active or bench. You were able to power up this attack very easily with Palkia V-Star's ability, Star Portal, which reads, during your turn, you may attach up to 3 water energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way you like. Moonlight Shuriken was perfect for knocking out 2 of your opponent's setup Pokemon, such as Sobble and Comfey. In the Lost Box deck, Radiant Greninja was a perfect draw support and powerful single prize attacker that you could power up with a single item card Mirage Gate and your manual attachment for turn. Radiant Greninja made Manaphy, with its Wave Veil ability, a must-have staple card to protect your bench from Radiant Greninja in every single deck. What do you guys think of the Radiant Pokemon mechanic? Is it good for the format, or are some of the cards simply overpowered? Let me know down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this, and I'll see you in the next one.